Hello and welcome to A Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green. Nearly 3/4 of the American public now thinks religion is losing influence in American life, and that's up 5 percentage points from 2010. But at the same time, it's not seen as a positive trend. Findings are part of a new Pew Research poll suggesting a widening divide between religiously affiliated Americans and the rising share of the population that is not affiliated with any religion. And joining me to sort through what this all means is Dr. Robert Jeffress, Senior Pastor of First Baptist Church of Dallas and a Fox News contributor, and Roy Speckhardt, Executive Director of the American Humanist Association. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
I just want to look at that poll just once again because it says that 72% of us believe that America is losing, or religion is losing its influence in America, and 22% say no. The other 6% say I don't know. Dr. Jeffress, what do you think of this poll?
For the last 50 years, there has been a crusade by secularists to remove prayer and Bible reading from the schools, Ten Commandment displays from the public schools, as well as from the private square, and also to remove crosses from war memorials. And I think Americans are finally waking up and they're asking themselves, is the moral and spiritual condition of our nation better or worse than it was when this crusade against religion began 50 years ago? Most Americans are saying that it's worse. And what's really interesting to me in this, Lauren, is also the number of Americans who are refusing now to confine their faith to their houses of worship or to their homes. They're saying their religious beliefs ought to affect their political decisions as well.
You know, Roy, he's making a direct comment to your people like you who are saying that they want to take religion out of the public square. So I want you to respond to the poll, but I also want you to respond to Dr. Jeffress.
Well, I do think, there's clearly a rise in the numbers of non-theists and secular Americans, and we're getting some backlash to that in the general public. But I think it's because that there's not enough education to show that an even playing field with religious liberty is good for all Americans, regardless of what they believe. And so I think that's a really important point in order to look at the analysis of this poll.
You know, let me bring up another poll that talks about should houses of worship express opinions on social and political issues. 49% say yes, 48% say no, and this is, again, a trend towards more religion in the public square. Because, yes, there you go, in 2010 it's 43%, now it's 49%. So there is this trend moving forward, and it's showing that perhaps the people want more religion in the public square, and they want more religion in the feelings of their politicians. And Roy, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's acceptable and perfectly reasonable for people who are religious to bring their opinions with them into the political sphere. However, I think it's important that we recognize that those politicians represent a diverse population, and America's getting more and more diverse every year regarding religion and other similar issues. And so they've got to represent all their constituents, not just some of them.
And Dr. Jeffress, that is primarily true. Religion is a positive influence, leaving out the excluding extremists like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. But for the most part, people believe that religion has a positive influence. But the problem is that we are seeing more and more conflicts over religious liberty. Why is that?
Well, I believe part of secularism, and I'm glad Roy is not in this camp, but many secularists, they're not trying to exterminate religious expressions or beliefs. What they're trying to do is isolate them to the homes or places of worship. And I believe many Christians have been muzzled because of a faulty understanding of the difference between the separation of church and state and the separation of faith from the rest of our lives. And you know, what I would remind people is that this poll says that many Americans want more politics talked about from the pulpit. They do not want pastors endorsing candidates, but they want their spiritual leaders to inform them about issues. And you know, Lauren, it's always been pastors who've been at the forefront of moral change in our society, whether it was the Black-Robed Regiment in the Revolutionary War, pastors leading the way in the abolitionist movement, or even pastors leading the way in the civil rights movement. And I believe it is important for pastors to lead the way, not in endorsing political candidates, but speaking out on issues and and informing their congregation so that they can allow their faith to impact every part of their lives.
Roy, let me ask you to answer to that, because there's been a lot of accusations of secular people that say that secularists are really trying to force religious people to keep their religion at home. Is that what they're trying to do?
Well, religious people, just like everyone, has a right to express their beliefs in different sorts of public settings. What we're trying to make sure doesn't happen is government takes the role of endorsing a particular faith. We don't want this to be a theocracy. We don't want to move in a direction where government is telling my kids or situations like that a particular faith. That's the mistake.
But that
if
hasn't
we can
happened.
agree,
I think the problem is that, and we see this more and more, and that sounds good on the umbrella, on the big issue, but we've seen more and more by individuals like in the Boston Theological, the Commonwealth Theological Seminary. You've got this Kentucky faith-based organization in Kentucky, obviously.
Right.
Their government contracts are being severed because of their religious affiliation, and so we're seeing this. You know, when you get down in the trenches, the reality of separating church and state is a lot more messy than, what Thomas Jefferson wrote,
we don't want to entangle the two.
Lauren, could I make this point? This whole idea of the separation of church and state, the first time it appeared in a Supreme Court decision was not until 1947 in the Everson case, in which the Supreme Court said that Catholic school could no longer receive government support. The Justice Hugo Black, who invoked that phrase, separation of church and state, was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And of course, as you know, the only people the Ku Klux Klan hated more than blacks were Catholics. And today you have Justice Scalia and Justice Thomas saying that Hugo Black's wall of separation was built on a foundation of religious prejudice. Look, make no mistake about it, America was founded as a Christian nation. We welcome people of all faiths or no faith, but the Constitution does not say Congress cannot endorse a religion. It says Congress cannot establish a religion. We are not to have a state church in which people are coerced to worship in, but that does not mean we cannot show preference.
Dr. Jeffress, I want Roy to get the last word here. Roy?
Yeah, this nation is not a Christian nation. It's a nation that's open for all values. It's a secularly government nation. And so that's something that enables people to be religious in any way they choose, which is one of the things that makes our country strong. So I don't think that there's a need to label this a Christian nation and revisit history in that way.
Well, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court,
I'm going to end this here because we run out of time, but I
nation.
think the thing that Dr. Jeffress said was that it was founded on Christian values, and I think that's where we're going to leave it right now. Thank you to you both for being here on A Spirited Debate. Of course, we're going to continue this conversation many, many, many times again. Thank you so much.
Both of you. You're very welcome.
Thank you.